Hello, and thanks for joining us on this KOMO News Town Hall Election 2025. I'm Chris Daniels.
I'm Steve Soliz. We are discussing challenges and opportunities ahead for our region. We're also hearing directly from the leaders who are vying for those top jobs.
And there's a lot of big races, the mayoral races in Seattle, Tacoma, and Everett, and King County Executive as well. We'll be bringing you those voices and tell you what they're talking about right now in this campaign cycle.
We are also hearing from a panel of experts who are going to weigh in on the biggest issues that are facing our region, from public safety and homelessness, as well as a soaring cost of living. The future of Washington is just one vote away.
And the conversation starts now with the Seattle mayor's race. It is the big ticket item if you are following this election, because a lot of people are dependent on what is happening in Seattle. The economy regionally really depends on the well-being of Seattle, and the mayor's race is involving the incumbent, Bruce Harrell, and the challenger, Katie Wilson. Wilson is a relative newcomer to running for any sort of elected office. She has run a nonprofit, but she won the primary, and that's what makes this race interesting, is Bruce Harrell is seen now as kind of the underdog in this race. So we had a chance to talk with both of them. First up, you're going to hear from Katie Wilson, the challenger. One of the press conferences in the last month or so was one about a B&O tax proposal that the mayor introduced with Councilmember Mercedes Rank. I know that you put out a statement suggesting that it was a great proposal by the council member and not the mayor. Why not give him credit for doing it?
I mean, I think that the way that it actually went down is that her office led on it, and he agreed to support it. So I think my statement was an accurate reflection of what actually happened. And I think there was a lot of surprise that he was in support of that proposal, because it was not the kind of thing that he probably would have supported earlier. But I think he was feeling a lot of pressure at that point to address the major budget deficit and also the pressure of our campaign. So, yeah.
I already hear the scuttlebutt. I mean, there's 21 different forums and debates
There's a lot.
that are scheduled. But that the other side here is going to try and craft this as somebody with experience and somebody without experience, and that he has been at City Hall for 15 plus years, 20 years, closer to 20 years as both mayor and a council member, and that you ran the Transit Riders Union. How do you answer that question that you don't have the experience to run a major city?
There's a few things to say here. So it's true that he's been in office for a long time, but I think one of the reasons why my campaign did so well in the primary is that people are looking around and they're not feeling like they're seeing a lot of results from that experience, right? He's presided over a massive explosion of our homelessness crisis, ever-increasing housing costs. And I also think it's important not to exaggerate the kind of experience that he came into office with, right? He was a council member managing a few council aides. Before that, he was at his law firm, presumably managing a few paralegals. And people come into the mayor's office from all kinds of directions, right? Seattle had a 3-term mayor once, Charlie Royer. He was a news reporter for King TV before he stepped into the mayor's office, right? Many former mayors have come in, from council offices. So, the experience that I've had over the years as a coalition builder does involve managing large teams of staff and volunteers from numerous organizations. Frankly, I think in a lot of ways, the relationships that I've built up and the experience that I've gained put me in a better position for this kind of role than if I was off, managing a Fortune 500 company or something, right? Because I have those relationships, I know the people, and it's a team effort, right? It's really about assembling that core team that's going to be working with you in the mayor's office, and I'm really excited. I think we're going to assemble a phenomenal team.
So you're ready to handle millions and millions of dollars in budgets?
Absolutely, and I mean, I think I've probably spent more time over the years combing through the city budget than our current mayor. I mean, he'd probably disagree with that, but back in 2020, I led on designing and passing the Jumpstart payroll expense tax, right, which is one of our city's major progressive revenue sources at this point. So I've done a lot of work on the city budget over the years, even though I haven't been in City Hall doing it.
When it comes to property taxes, I think this is going to be an issue that'll be talked about a lot in these forums and debates, but isn't there an argument that if you keep going to the well on property taxes, that discourages landlords from building affordable housing?
I do think that it would be really great to reform our property tax system so that it's less burdensome, especially to lower and moderate income homeowners. That is something that we have to tackle at the state level, but I would be interested in working with the legislature on that. It's unfortunate that we don't have more great progressive tax options. As you might know, we have the second most regressive tax system in the country, and so our options are limited. We do end up going out for property tax levies a lot, and that's one of the reasons why when we do get that money, we need to make sure that we are really delivering projects, right? That we're spending that tax money well.
So I know affordable housing and housing has been the top of your campaign, and you had this viral video of you eating a piece of pizza and said it's all tied to the cost of housing, but the cynic could say it's also tied to the fact minimum wage has gone up, which is a good thing in Seattle. How does it not include the fact that wages have gone up in some of these restaurants as well?
It absolutely does, and actually that was part of the point of that video, was drawing that connection between the high wages that employers in our city have to pay and housing costs, right? Because part of the reason why we have such a high minimum wage is because housing costs are so high, because our wage is indexed to the cost of living in our area. So when rents go up, we actually have larger minimum wage increases year by year. And even regardless of the minimum wage, it's really about what employers have to pay to hire and retain great staff. Because if housing costs are so high that workers can't afford to live in the neighborhood where they work and are having to commute a long way, it's going to be really hard to hire good people, and you're going to have to pay more. So those high wages are absolutely a big driver of high restaurant costs, but that is also related to the housing crisis.
That is Katie Wilson, the challenger, who has really been debating Bruce Harrell quite a bit over this campaign. 21 different forums and debates. We covered one as well here on KOMO. And what we have seen from Bruce Harrell recently in the last month or so is he has been using the bully pulpit to use his office to get out in front of cameras and talk to people about what he has accomplished and what he wants to accomplish in another term. I had a chance to talk with him one-on-one after the debate that KOMO carried live. Mayor, why do you want to do this job again for another 4 years?
Well, I do love the job, but the issues are challenging in terms of affordability, but we're proving to the voters how much we're doing for affordability and public safety. So I want to do it because, I love this city, and I'll go all in on trying to protect everyone and make sure they can live here. And that's, we've set the foundation for this city to be phenomenal. We've got the funding for it, we have the commitment, and we have the talent, the experienced talent in place to get this job done. So that's why we're running for re-election.
I heard the question come up in this debate that you lost by 10 points in the primary. You're the underdog in this race. Why are you the underdog in this race as an incumbent?
Well, number one, was a low voter turnout, and a lot of people weren't paying a lot of attention to the issues, and people are rightfully anxious with Trump in office, and they want to make sure they have a change agent in the mayor's office. And I think tonight, for example, we proved I am the change agent. That's why I ran for office, and that's what I've been doing as mayor. They've seen the drastic change in the city, and it's only going to get better because we have, the tenacity and the toughness and the skill set to move us forward. And I think that's why people are excited now about going to the general.
I know you have a downtown activation plan that's now a couple of years running, and there are parts of the downtown area that are doing much better, including the waterfront, South Lake Union, Pioneer Square, but the downtown retail core is not. There's still been a lot of businesses move out in the last couple of years. There's still a lot of empty, vacant office space. Why haven't you been able to fix that?
Well, we have to look at, again, the effects of COVID took us as a high-tech sector a little harder than most. And so we still have a lot of employers in the high-tech sector, and that's 40% of our jobs that have not returned to downtown. And so what our plans will reflect is that we're making it more experiential. In other words, more restaurants, more music, more food, more dog parks, this kinds of activity. And we had the zoning changes to make sure people could now more people could live downtown. So we put, again, the plans in place. You're going to see over Triple Door, for example, more housing. So we're cleaning it up, we're making it safer. But again, this takes some time, and that's exactly why we need a second term.
So in a way, I'm giving you a final chance here to make your case to voters as part of this KOMO Town Hall that we're doing. Why should people vote for you instead of Katie Wilson?
Well, number one, she clearly lacks the experience. She hasn't prepared for this, and I see her evading a lot of very direct answers. She will never talk about her plans to build a police department or what she's going to do as a chief defender. What we have in my leadership is a proven commodity, experience, someone that will fight Trump, number one, But number two, the one that has put over $1 billion in affordable housing and will put $1 billion more. One that we rebuild the public safety. We started the care department and unarmed response from scratch. Now we're recruiting 10 officers a day, 4,000 per year. We're looking at the crime rates going down, safety is going up. That's what you're getting from the unknown commodity, someone that is tenacious to fight Trump and to build this Seattle that we love.
So there you have it. You've heard from both candidates for Seattle mayor. And what's interesting in this race versus 4 years ago is 4 years ago, a lot of people were talking about public safety. I think if you pay attention to any sort of polling in this race, the top issue for a lot of people is affordability. Katie Wilson perhaps won the primary because she has talked so much about affordability, Steve.
And of course, affordability has been a huge topic of conversation in all of the conversations we've had with all the different leaders and all the potential candidates that we've had throughout all the races. Affordability is a serious issue. And so we wanted to really find out from somebody who knows the economics of our region, what is our biggest issue when it comes to affordability? And so we spoke with Stacy Jones at Seattle U. She teaches economics to students, and it's really interesting to hear what she had to say. What's driving our higher cost of living here in our region?
I think I asked a few neighbors when I was getting ready, and everybody gave the right answer, which is housing. I think that's the biggest part of the typical household budget, and housing costs are high here, and that, rental costs are high. And that seems to be the big driver, although higher education and medical costs would probably be second and, third and second, or second and third.
And these are costs that continue to rise across the board.
Absolutely. For example, higher education costs, if you look at the trajectory of that, has grown much, much, much faster than inflation over the past 30 years or so. So, not something that probably a mayor can do much about, but definitely something that's going to be affecting household budgets.
Are there strategies that have worked in the past for lowering costs? Specifically costs like you just spoke about, or are we kind of stuck in a spot where it is what it is?
One of the things I think is fascinating about this moment for Seattle is that we're talking about adding density, which I think historically, when you ask that great question about history, and historically cities started dense, right? Because they were built walking scale, right? Paris was built walking scale. New York was built walking scale. They were built before cars, and then they spread out. And now we're thinking about, can we go the other direction? Can we take a city that was built cars and at automobile scale and add density? And probably somebody will tell me I'm wrong and find an example, but historically, I'm not sure we have a good example of that moving to greater density. So, you could say that it's opportunity to model how that can be done for the right, if person can muster those political forces and do that.
Another race we are tracking is the mayoral race in Tacoma. They will have a new mayor this year after Victoria Woodard was done serving there. So we have two candidates to look at here. Currently, John Hines serves on the city council, and he wants to be mayor. And we spoke with him about why he thinks he should be the person in that office. Why are you running to be mayor of Tacoma?
Great question. I've been on the council for the last 5 years. I spent a lot of time kind of understanding where the city is, kind of where we've been, where we are, and I have some clear ideas of kind of where I think we should go next. I could easily have just stayed on the council. I'm in the middle of my term and just kind of been the council member, but I felt called to step into the mayor, to run for mayor and really kind of be the leader going forward. My colleagues are mostly supporting me, and they think I'm the person to kind of lead going ahead. And I think the big reason I'm running is I've been frustrated with kind of where we are in the city of Tacoma. I think there's things that we could be working on and doing better. I think there are city services we could be delivering more effectively to our residents. I think there are issues, housing and homelessness, public safety, streets and roads, that we could really be doing more and delivering more to our residents. And my whole time on the council, I've really taken on the tough issues, specifically around housing and homelessness, streets and roads, litter, trash, graffiti, animal welfare. Just a whole panoply of things. And, my whole focus has been like, how do we just get a little bit better? How do we make sure that, the residents see more of the impact of what our city is doing? How do we make sure that tomorrow is just a little bit better than today? And I think that's what we really need right now. We need someone who can kind of come in and really kind of lead the city going forward and really be focused on Tacoma and making it a better place. And because that's the kind of focus I have, and that's what I think we need, I'm decided I want to run for mayor, and excited to be here and talk more about what I hope to do.
Okay. What do you think are the biggest issues facing the next mayor?
Top line is our city budget, really thinking about, a lot of cities in the region across the country are struggling kind of with budget deficits kind of ongoing. We have been talking a lot about the fact that our revenues have grown kind of slowly, and our expenses have really kind of expanded. And so we're kind of seeing this increasing gap in revenues and expenses. And, I think that's just a real challenge the mayor's gonna have to figure out in the next couple of years. Because people will come in and they'll say, hey, I want to fix this problem or this problem or this problem. But the first question to ask is, well, how are you going to pay for that? What are the resources that are there? And so my real focus, I think, is how do we grow our budget in a way that kind of can help us pay for the services that people care about? And so that critically to us, our kind of four main sources of revenue are property taxes, sales tax, utility taxes, and business taxes. And I think the mayor really needs to be laser-like focused on how do we get more people doing business in the city of Tacoma? How do we get more business to grow in the city of Tacoma so we can really help kind of grow that part of our budget? Because what that will do is allow us to pay for the services and address the concerns I hear from people. So like if you ask me, like, what are the top concerns I hear from people when I'm out knocking on doors? It's public safety, right? I don't feel safe in my community, and we got to make sure my neighborhood, and we got to make sure we're doing things to make people more safe. And that's both police and fire. It's also looking at fixing sidewalks and streets and street lights so that people feel safe just walking around. I hear people talk about housing and homelessness. Homelessness is an issue the city is struggling with, much like the rest of the region. I'm struggling to pay my rent, or I'm finding housing that I can afford or that my family members can afford. And then the other big one is just, I talk about growth of the economy, right? Like, how do we make sure there's more jobs that pay good wages that can support families in our city? So those are the big three, but underlying all of that, and the big one the mayor is gonna have to step into is, how do we how do we balance our budget to make sure we deliver the services people want?
What sets you apart from your challenger?
It comes down to, I think in the end of the day, just the ability to kind of get things done. And so I've been on the council for 5 years. And in my 5 years, I've really been the leader on some major issues, right? So updating our tax exemptions for more affordable housing, taking on things like homelessness and housing, things as wide-ranging as litter, trash, and graffiti programs, streets and public works, and all the way down to cat declawing and animal welfare issues, right? So I have a wide range of experience and have really pulled lots of different ordinances and legislation across the finish line, working with my colleagues, working with community, and getting things done. And I think that's the thing I've really demonstrated my ability to do. My opponent was here for 8 years and definitely showed a less of an ability to pull things across the finish line. I have multiple ordinances and resolutions that I have kind of brought through. I was sponsor, co-sponsor, and my record is much more in depth and broad than my opponent. And I think that's the critical thing I would say to the public. It's one thing to say you're going to do something. It's one thing to say you're going to accomplish something. It's another to actually have a documented history of doing things. And I think that's the biggest difference between the two of us. My colleagues trust me and are supporting me and have stood by me as I pulled these policies across the finish line. And I'm going to continue to do that as the mayor.
I also spoke with Anders Ibsen, who has some experience in serving in the city of Tacoma. He now wants to be mayor, so we spoke with him about why he should be elected. Thank you for joining us. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. Well, thank you again for making the time. My name is Anders Ibsen. I'm a lifelong Tacoma resident, born and raised here. I had the privilege of serving previously as your deputy mayor for Tacoma, along with a member of the city council. I'm also a small business owner. I operate a successful real estate team. I'm also a home appraiser. I'm also the father of a beautiful 3-year-old and a little rescue kitty. And it's my dream to make sure that this city is even better for them than it was for me. I'm running because this is my lifelong home. I love it here to death. I've seen what we've done well, and I'm also intimately familiar with the frustrations, and I'm committed to having us do better.
Okay, let me ask you, what do you think are the biggest issues facing the next mayor?
Well, I've spoken with many people across all of Tacoma's neighborhoods. I've personally visited over 15,000 doors, and people just don't feel safe in our neighborhoods. I mean, it's not for lack of effort, but I think it is for lack of prioritization and focus. So many people in our neighborhoods, from the south end to the north end, hilltop, east side, northeast, everywhere in between, just feel that they're not getting enough attention, that everything from the response time to just looking at the actual factors in the neighborhoods just aren't getting the proper focus that they're needing. And we need to do a much better job of addressing homelessness. We can't just take on an entire region's problems alone by ourselves. We have to have more of a team approach, working with the county, our surrounding jurisdictions, and having a smart, sensible approach that's actually focused on the long term instead of just short-term optics.
How do you plan to address some of those issues?
Sure. So thinking about homelessness, for example, there is some encouraging possibility when it comes to working more with the county, with surrounding jurisdictions, bring in more voices to the table, like perhaps the Puyallup tribe, for instance. But we need to make sure that we're really keeping our eye on the prize, that we're having as much of a focus as possible, because with not the most stable funding from the federal and state levels, we need to build local resiliency into how we provide services for folks, while at the same time ensuring that there's adequate accountability and that we're providing relief for our neighborhoods. When it comes to public safety, we need to make sure there's adequate staffing for our police department and other support services, and that we're also thinking long-term about how to make our neighborhoods cleaner and more attractive.
Okay, what sets you apart from your challenger?
Sure. So experience, and also just depth of knowledge and depth of experience in the community too. So I served for 8 full years on the city council. Unlike anyone else running for mayor, I hired 2 city managers and a utility director. So I'm very intimately familiar with what good executive hiring looks like. And that's one of the key first decisions the new mayor and council has to make, is hiring a city manager, the person responsible for running the city day after day. But also, as a private business owner and a private employer myself, I know what good hiring looks like. I've managed budgets, hired people, I've kept people on the payroll during really tough economic times. And it's not just an abstraction for me. I literally know what it means for our entrepreneurs, for our families who are going through the same thing right now in Tacoma. And it's not going to be lost on me while we make those decisions.
Okay. Well, lastly, we want you to speak to the voter. Why should a person in Tacoma vote for you as their next mayor?
Well, this election is fundamentally about how you want to feel about your city. I've spoken with many people who have been lifelong residents or who've come here, whether after PCSing from the military or who've moved here for work or other reasons. And there are people who really want to be proud of their city, but there's something holding a lot of us back. There's a feeling that we could be doing so much better. And this election is fundamentally about whether you want the city to continue on its current course or whether you think we're ready for something newer and better. And I think what makes my candidacy different is, given the accomplishments that I can point to as a former councilman, whether it's helping pass our minimum wage increase back in 2015, advocating for the rights of people in our community to have our paid sick and safe leave law, working for better infrastructure funding, supporting additional funding for street repair, for example. Whether it's those accomplishments or just the skill set that I bring, I think this election is fundamentally about old versus new. This is about whether we can have that new energy, actual entrepreneurial creativity, or just more of the same. And I think that's what sets our campaigns apart. It's what I'm committed to working on as your next mayor.
In both the conversation with Hines and Ibsen, while they did say affordability was a big issue within the city of Tacoma, they also talked about public safety being a serious problem. It's no secret. We've covered many a story on KOMO about issues within Tacoma and really across Pierce County, with public safety being a serious issue.
And there's one case down in Pierce County that is also part of a broader conversation statewide as we talk about this election cycle. I did have a chance to talk with Tanika Tigner. She lost her daughter, Kiera, in a horrible crime, a murder involving a man who had been paroled early. And for her, it was important to talk about public safety as it pertains to this election. She would like to see laws changed in Olympia. And so I had a chance to talk with her as well about why public safety and really the laws in Washington state are important for her as a voter.
My daughter was brutally murdered on June the 10th. She was homeless and she was trying to get her life together. And I guess she got hooked up with some guy, and I never met him. I only met him one time. She was we didn't see her for a whole year. And the day, I think it was the day after Christmas, I said, Kiera, we haven't seen you for a whole year. We haven't really talked to you. The kids want to see you. I want to see you. She said, well, only way I'll come over is if my husband can come. And I was like, when did you get married? And so, I missed my daughter. We missed her. And so we let her come over, and he just, I mean, that at that time, he looked normal, but and I was trying to ask him, like, how old are you? Where are you from? I've always talked to him on the phone, and I would always say, where's my daughter? You're not doing nothing to try to help her, improve her life, try to get her to, secure housing, get her children. Because I had taken her children from her because they didn't need to be in the environment that she was in. And so I just figured, if I take her children, then maybe that will get her to get her life together. But I guess it just spiraled downhill. I didn't know anything about him. That was my first time ever meeting him. And, come to find out, he, he did this to somebody 20 years ago, and he got released. He stabbed her in her neck, and he stabbed her 35 times. And then he meets my daughter. He gets out, I think he does 20 years, and then he gets out and meets my daughter. So he got out August 2024. We didn't see her until December 2024. So I don't know how long they've known each other.
And you come to find out his criminal background, and there's a question of whether he should have been out.
Exactly, because they let him out 8 years early due to that Blake decision.
What laws do you think could have been changed here to avoid a situation where he was allowed to be released?
Well, implement mandatory stricter oversight. You should inform the victims not 1 week before the person gets out, not 2 months before the person gets out, because the first victim, the mother, died 4 years later due to complications of what he did. Stricter rehabilitation services before they get released. And they shouldn't be able to. There's no way that he should have been able to get out.
And
he
you
does it less than 1 year, less than 1 year from him getting out. He does it again. No, I don't care what type of person my daughter was. I don't care what she did. She did not deserve to have that happen to her. And I don't want this to happen to nobody else. Black, white, whatever color. No woman deserves to be violated like the way she was.
And do you think that this issue of public safety and rewriting laws is being paid attention to by lawmakers in Olympia or other cities, whether it be in the
Most
South
definitely
Sound or-
not. Most definitely not. You can't just let these people out, because I was told they let like 5,500 of them people like him out into the community and say, hey, here's $25 in a bus pass, and go follow with your PO. There's no accountability.
Well, I'm sorry that you've had to go through all this. It's horrible, but you're also shining a light on the issue, and hopefully within our town hall we can shed more light on it and let people know that you want some change.
A big race in Snohomish County is the mayor's race in the city of Everett. There are two people up for election, one of them actually for re-election. I spoke with Cassie Franklin, who served as mayor of Everett for some time, and she explains why she should be reelected. Thank you for being with us. If you can, please tell the voters a little bit about yourself.
Hi, well, thank you for having me. I'm Cassie Franklin. I've been honored to serve as mayor for the city of Everett for the last 7.5 years as the first woman elected mayor. And before I became mayor, I spent my career in housing and homelessness, a little bit in animal welfare, helping homeless kids on a regional level, and then locally at an organization here providing prevention, housing, and outreach services to kids. It's been an honor to serve as mayor, and I think I've done a lot of great work during extraordinary times. I've led us through obviously the global pandemic, some local tragedies, and a lot of growth and transformation in our cities, just on a very positive trajectory. And so I look forward to serving as mayor for another 4 years.
And let me ask you, why are you running for re-election?
Well, I think that, I love this city. I absolutely love this city. And I've spent my life in community service. And as I was working in the nonprofit sector, I realized I could accomplish more for the community if I served as mayor. And so in this position, I get to work and collaborate with some amazing organizations, nonprofit and for-profit, all for the betterment of this community. I really look forward to continuing to work towards my vision, which is for Everett to be the best city in the Pacific Northwest, to raise a family, pursue an education, start a career, and just have a fantastic quality of life. And if folks haven't been into Everett lately, I would encourage you to come, because we have really been blossoming over the last few years. We have a beautiful historic downtown, a gorgeous waterfront, and a really culturally rich, diverse city. And so there's just a lot of wonderful things happening. And I want to continue to serve and protect and strengthen this community.
Let me ask you, what do you think sets you apart from your challenger in this race?
Well, I have the experience. I've been doing this work for 7.5 years. And I think my background also has given me a much stronger experience to lead this type of city and to deal with the issues that we're facing. I have a lot of endorsements from throughout the community, from all levels of government. So I'm proud to have the endorsement of Rick Larson, Susan Del Bene, and state level leadership and all the local mayors. So I think there's 19 different mayors from across the area that have endorsed me. And I think mayors really know what it takes to get this job done. But I also am very proud of the diverse support I have, whether it be from labor unions or other unions that really have a passion and understanding of what's going on in our community. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Snohomish County Democrats and the 38th District Democrats. But I think I'm also a very accessible mayor. For the longest time, Everett was kind of getting to its cusp, but always, focused on maybe one demographic of Everett, the more privileged elite demographic of Everett. And I pride myself on really working to represent all of Everett, being connected to organizations throughout the community, being very present in South Everett, connecting with our communities of color and leaders that in different communities, and diversifying our boards and commissions so that we have better representation. I think that's one of the things that sets me apart. I think there's a long list of things that set us apart and make us very different leaders. But I think I would be accessible, compassionate, and continue to lead with the experience that I have that has been successful and has put Everett on a really, really strong, positive path forward.
Okay, before we let you go, we want you to speak directly to the voter. Why should the people of Everett reelect you?
I think that if my opponent is running a little bit on Everett's not in a good place, it's terrible, things aren't good. And that's why we need a change. And I think there's a real disconnect, because when the community goes outside and sees the beautiful, wonderful festivals, events, activities, new businesses coming, things to do, and a community that's healing from a lot of challenges over the last few years, that's simply not true. Everett is on a very strong path.
The challenger for Mayor Franklin is Scott Murphy, who told me that he loves the city of Everett and he believes that he has the answers to some of what he calls Everett's problems. Scott, thanks for being with us. Please tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks, Steve. My name is Scott Murphy, and I'm running for Everett Mayor. I was on the city council in Everett for about 9 years. I've lived in Everett for 35 years. My wife and I raised our 3 kids here, and we love Everett. We think Everett's got a lot going for it, and I want to step forward and try to put Everett on a better path.
Okay. Well, that said, why specifically are you running to be mayor of Everett?
Well, as I said, Everett has a lot of great things going for it. We've got a beautiful waterfront. We've got a Navy home port. We have Payne Field. We have incredible parks, amazing schools. We've got WSU Everett. We have an active arts and culture scene. We have the Children's Museum. We have a lot going for us here in Everett, and that's fantastic, except we also have challenges here in Everett. We have challenges with homelessness. If you look at the homelessness issues over the last 8 years under our current mayor, homelessness is up 95% in the city of Everett, and that's unacceptable. We've got to do better. We also have issues with public safety here in Everett. Our police department has been chronically understaffed for the last 8 years, between 25 and 35 officers during most of that period. And that has an impact on response times. It has an impact on people just being safe out in the community. And recently, we've even seen some large retailers who've pulled out of Everett or in the midst of leaving Everett. We have Fred Meyer leaving in October, and we had a Walmart store that left about 2 years ago, and many other businesses. So we've got issues with public safety.
What would you say sets you apart from your challenger?
Well, I have a long track record in business. I was a city council member for 9 years, as I mentioned earlier, but I have run successful organizations for many years. Most recently, I ran a local company here in Everett for the past 16 years, had a lot of success. I believe that we need, balanced budgets. Our current mayor has been running a deficit for the last few years. I believe we have to fully staff our police department and our firefighters and our Medic 1 units to make sure that people in Everett are safe. And that has not happened over the last 8 years. So even though the city council provided budget to fill these positions, the mayor has not stepped forward to do that. So I believe that I just have a different approach, a different set of priorities. The other thing I would say is that our current mayor has cut back on a lot of our quality of life type amenities in this city over the last few years. We are a city of over 110,000 people, and surprisingly, our city swimming pool was closed several years. We don't have a city swimming pool in the city of Everett. And so that's one of my priorities if I'm elected. We're going to get our city swimming pool opened up. We deserve it. The people of Everett, they need to have a place for their kids and families to go and enjoy a swim center and learn how to swim. Our park ranger program, we've had park rangers in Everett for decades. And at the beginning of this year, our mayor canceled that park ranger program. So we have, I think it's 43 parks in the city of Everett, one of our big assets. And we don't have park rangers. So there's safety and security issues in our parks. I want to reinstate that program if I'm elected mayor. And there's other issues as well. Our library, we're very unique in Everett. We are not part of the county library system. Everett runs its own library. We have 2 locations, and we've run it that way for many years. Earlier this year in January, in addition to eliminating that park ranger program, our mayor reduced the funding to our library. So we are no longer a 7-day-a-week library in Everett. We are now down to 5 days a week. So there's just a lot of quality of life things that I think that need to be brought back that I would prioritize that our mayor has cut over the last several years.
I want you now to speak directly to the voter before we let you go. Why should the people of Everett choose you?
Well, Steve, thanks for that question. I believe we have a great city. I think we have a lot going for us, and I believe that we deserve better. We have a great future in store for us, but we've got to have good leadership. We've got to solve these issues that are facing us, whether it's homelessness, public safety, finances, housing affordability. And I bring a different perspective. I bring a common sense business approach. I believe we have to balance our budgets, and that's a difference that I think really is important. If we don't have a solid financial plan in our city, the rest of it is going to be really challenging when our city is broke. So I'm committed as a CPA, former CPA, retired after many years. I understand budgets. I understand running businesses. And I, as a council member, believe I can add value as mayor running the city of Everett. And that's my commitment. Put us back on a better path.
Both candidates in Everett, and really, and same in Tacoma, talked about how homelessness is a serious issue. And a lot of them really believe that while it's an issue in their city, it's really a problem that we all share. We collectively share the same homelessness problem.
Yeah, it is a regional issue in Seattle, Tacoma, and Everett. We've heard it now for years. dating back pre-pandemic. Of course, the issue became more extensive during the pandemic, and we've seen the numbers continue to rise across the region.
We wanted to speak with somebody who really understands homelessness, and more than just the sweeps and the things that we hear about on the news every day. We spoke with Lisa Dugard, who works and dedicated her life to trying to solve this homelessness problem. And so as we started our conversation, I pointed out that every candidate that we spoke with seems to have an issue or a plan to deal with homelessness. So I asked her, is it that the way to go? Does every candidate, you take their plan and run with it, or should every city find a way to work together to tackle homelessness? And this is what she had to say.
If we accept that there really is a framework that works best, then it would be very advantageous for the leaders around our region to collaborate on applying that same model at the same time, partly because people do move back and forth among these areas. And so again, not having it be Groundhog Day, like, oh, here's a person, we know nothing about them. Let's try the same exact thing that didn't work for them the last 16 times it was tried. And we don't have to do it that way. We can retain the knowledge that we have about what, the plan is for a particular person, and share that information. But you can't do that. You need an agreed framework to do that protects people's rights, that isn't going to expose sensitive, confidential information to, in ways that is unproductive and violates people's trust. Also, there is, as you point out, just a phenomenon where people running for office and in office want to brand, the policy initiatives in their jurisdiction with their own name and reinvent the wheel and discover something that no one else has ever discovered before. That's tough to resist, but things go better when our local leaders do resist that. And that's why I think we're fortunate that this sort of, positive recent experience was one that the state authored and that numerous counties implemented in a fairly similar fashion. So hopefully we can break that tendency to, run after a shiny new thing with a new name and a very limited scope and very limited shelf life.
What's the risk of pouring resources into a personal plan that comes from the mind of somebody running for office versus a proven method that has shown results?
There are two risks in doing that. One is actually related to affordability. That third, there's public safety and homelessness, which we work on. Affordability, though, is related to the problem of pouring resources into approaches that are very unlikely to succeed. We cannot afford, as a state, to waste a single dollar on approaches that are not effective. Every dollar needs to do what it can to actually solve our problems. And so rolling out initiatives that are not evidence-based, they're not experience-based, which really, I mean, there's not a track record that creates a very strong basis for confidence that the approach is going to work, is really irresponsible. We can't afford to do that. We can't pile new, I think we need more resources, but we can't gain, I guess the second problem is we can't gain public confidence to back, those new resources, which come out of people's pockets. If we are, repeatedly demonstrating that we don't know what we're doing and we can't deliver results. So both with respect to public confidence and with respect to affordability, we can only afford to spend money on approaches that we know with great confidence are going to yield the results that they purport to achieve.
As we enter this series, this time where people are going to be going to cast their vote, and every candidate addresses homelessness, what do you hope they understand when they do hear these politicians talk about them having the answer to solve homelessness in our region?
Well, it's very hard to differentiate. You know, everyone attests that they want to resolve this problem, and so it's hard to sort through those claims. I think, therefore, looking for leadership that points to proven models that are not just academic or theoretical or something that a focus group said that they thought might work, but rather something that has demonstrated efficacy. That's what to really search for. So in a way, voters should be rewarding candidates that don't succumb to the temptation to push out a shiny new thing with their name on it. And yes, that it requires exercising some voter self-discipline and to resist that temptation. But looking for candidates that are putting their weight on and putting their credibility on models that have demonstrated the ability to deliver. That's the best way to protect voter interests, I think.
So while it was really good to hear that plan and hear some of our ideas about working together, the reality is whether you live in Pierce County, Snohomish County, even if you're in Whatcom County, there's this mindset that King County is the source of all the issues, all the problems, that whatever happens in the Seattle area, east side, that all those problems bleed into other areas. So they're looking at King County really to get things under control.
And it is a issue during this campaign cycle. We have seen a lot of discussion about the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. We have seen in the Seattle mayor's race in particular, Bruce Harrell say that he may be interested here in a few months in disbanding the KCRHA as we know it, turn it into a policy organization because of all the money that Seattle has contributed to the KCRHA. And we have seen the numbers continue to go up. Again, to your point, people blaming Seattle for the issue. He's saying he's not getting enough buy-in from other cities and other counties. And that's part of the discussion too, as well, in a King County executive's race, where we do have an open seat. Dow Constantine has left as King County executive after so many years. He's now at Sound Transit. Shannon Braddock has been filling the role until this election cycle is over. And there's two candidates who are longtime politicians. Both have sat on the King County Council, Gurmai Zahalai and Claudia Balducci. Gurmai is considered an up-and-comer in the Democratic Party locally. Claudia Balducci is the former mayor of Bellevue, who has been on the council and has been a person who's also been involved in the county jail system. She's talked about that a lot when it pertains to, say, the youth jail and the issues around public safety in King County. I had a chance to talk with both of them. First up, Gurmai Zahalai.
I really care about the community that I live in, that I was raised in, that I'm raising my daughter in with my wife, and we're facing a lot of challenges in this region right now, from housing affordability to public safety to a federal government that's attacking a lot of our communities. And I think the King County executive is the most powerful and influential local office position for making local level change, and I want to be part of that change.
How will you be any different than Dow Constantine?
For me, I want to focus on a handful of issues and be hyper laser focused on them and build the coalition that's needed to solve those problems. When I go out and talk to communities around King County, the top things that they're telling me about is there's a cycle of homelessness and addiction and incarceration that keeps happening that is really impacting a lot of our communities. There's an affordability crisis. People can't afford their rent, their groceries, just their childcare and so many other issues. They're facing public safety issues like gun violence and break-ins and things of that nature. And again, the federal government is something that people are really, really worried about right now. And so for me, building the coalitions that are needed to be laser focused on those issues and see success based on the outcomes and not necessarily how much money we spent or who we proved to be right, ideology, those are things that I think need to be prioritized in this next administration.
All right, let's talk about your time on the council. You were at one point in favor of closing the youth jail, cutting funding to police, and reallocating that money for programs. Do you still want to do that?
What I wanted to do with respect to the youth jail is move away from one central secure building to smaller secure buildings that are more therapeutic, more educational, more integrated with community-based services. And now my position is we can do that within the existing facility. So the only thing that's changed is I don't want to go around the county fighting more siting battles to site smaller youth secure facilities. I think what we can do is continue to promote public safety by having a secure building and making sure that our young people have a second chance to be rehabilitated in an environment that's much more therapeutic than we have now. So continue to have a secure building, make sure it's more therapeutic, make sure it's more integrated with community-based services, make sure that our young people are set up for success when they leave that environment.
The second part of that question, though, in terms of cutting funding to police, people like to use the one word defund, but moving money around to programs. You still want to do that?
I have never said I wanted to defund the police. My position has always been making sure that what happens on the ground, the emergencies that our communities are experiencing, are tailored to the specific response that we have. So if people are experiencing violent crime, they should have a fast, reliable police response. If people are experiencing a mental health crisis, they should have the co-response system with a mental health provider. If people have simple code enforcement issues that they want somebody to respond to, maybe that doesn't require somebody with a gun, they should have a code enforcement officer be able to show up. This year, I was proud to be the prime sponsor and champion of the new revenue source that would go to stabilizing and filling our police response system. So before Executive Constantine left office, he said, we have this general fund issue that's going to lead to $30 million of cuts to the sheriff's office, $15 million of cuts to the prosecutors, I think $10 million of cuts to the courts. My legislation actually provided resources to stabilize that so we don't have to make those cuts. So we absolutely need a very stable, fast response, emergency response system.
But some of these programs that I know your colleagues on the council have supported in the past, you are well aware of the audit that was just done of all of these community programs. Depending on which audit you want to pay attention to, that money is well over $1 billion that was handed out without any sort of oversight on where that money or how the money was going to be spent. How are you going to be the best steward of funds?
Yeah, the results of that audit were absolutely unacceptable. The audit showed that money was not properly overseen through DCHS's grant programs, and we have a paramount duty as government officials of protecting taxpayer dollars. That's why long before this audit even came out, I prioritized this issue so much that I'm the only candidate who released a plan specifically dedicated to government accountability, efficiency, and transparency. It's called my King County Delivers Plan. And if elected, what this would do is call for an Office of Internal Audit so that we're not waiting for Councilmember Dunn to propose an audit. Instead, the executive branch is proactively auditing not only DCHS, but all of our departments so that people can rest assured that their money is being spent wisely and effectively.
So there you have it. Gurmai Zahalai, who did finish first in the primary. Claudia Balducci has been making the debate rounds as well. She's considered to have a stronger foothold in the east side, where she served for so many years on the Bellevue Council and as Bellevue mayor. Here's what she had to say after a recent forum that I moderated. Claudia, broadly, why do you want this job as King County Executive?
I've spent most of my professional career as a public servant working in local government. I come from a family of local government professionals, public servants, and I believe that when we do our job right, the community is better off, people are better off, and I think I have a lot to offer because of everything I have done and learned in my experience in transportation, delivering light rail, in housing, creating the first ever homeless shelters in East King County and delivering thousands of new affordable homes, and in public safety as a public safety professional who has worked in the system and knows how it can be made to work fairly and effectively. I just believe I can bring a lot of good outcomes for the people of King County.
I know, talking with voters and talking with people, this is one of those races that's not getting the same amount of attention as the Seattle mayor's race, because people like you both. They're familiar with you both. You're known quantities, both being on the council. So how are you different than your opponent?
I just think well, first of all, we're a pretty low drama government, and we like to keep it that way. But there's no comparison when it comes to experience, delivering results, and the ability to actually run this big government. We're a $10 billion a year budgeted government with 18,000 employees, and I'm the only candidate in this race who has ever run anything. I've run a department with over $100 million budget and 1,000 employees. It's a bigger job, but I've got the executive experience to make it work. And as we are hearing about the ways in which county government has really fallen down on basics of the job, watching where our financing is going in human services with that audit that we had, we desperately need somebody now who is going to be able to run this big government. It's not flashy. It's not about a big new vision. It's about doing what we've promised and doing it well.
But somebody could counter that both you and your opponent have been on the council when there was all this potential waste of millions and millions of dollars on community programs. So why would you be any different running the office as executive?
What happened in the executive branch. We found out about it because we had a legislative branch audit that uncovered it. So the question is then, who's better situated to respond, to make sure that we do the right thing going forward? I have run a very successful reform effort in the jail system over the years that was blessed by the Department of Justice, met their standards. My colleague has not done anything like this. He talks about his website and the things he's put there, but that didn't stop the audit problems from occurring, and it has not been deployed to do much of anything, whereas I've leaned in to start the action to make sure we're responding. It's about who can really fix what we've got going on right now.
And I know that if you pay attention to certain polls, affordability is more important to people than public safety in this particular election cycle. So what are you going to do to make King County more affordable?
So affordability is a huge problem. I hear about it all the time. I represent a part of the county that is going from being an expensive place to an exclusive place where almost nobody can afford to live unless they make really high wages. I have dedicated myself to making sure we are providing affordable housing, and we need to continue to do that and expand those efforts. As executive, I would take the partnerships I've built up with all of the cities, housing providers, big employers like Amazon and Microsoft who have joined our coalition and are investing in housing, to make sure that we are increasing access to affordable housing throughout King County, east, south, and north. We've been able to do a lot of great things by providing discounted or free land near light rail stations. That's something that I was proud to champion as a longtime leader at Sound Transit. We are pushing a supply strategy that is increasing access, increasing zoning, so that every city and in King County, developers can do what they do. They can build housing. That's how you scale. You scale by getting the market to provide what it can provide and get government basically to let up off the hose that we have been stepping on for housing for too long. Many strategies like this can make a big difference. I've been the leader on the council pulling together all of these stakeholders at our Affordable Housing Committee, which I founded and chair, and we are pushing solutions forward now. We could accelerate it if you had an executive that made housing the top priority and had the skills, the experience, and the partnerships to actually deliver.
What about using like $1 billion of county debt?
Yeah, I'm aware of the proposal. So this was the marquee proposal of my colleague who's running. He announced it at a press conference with pre-printed placards. And then we commissioned a study, which came back a few months ago, that said it doesn't work. It doesn't provide any housing because you would need new taxes. And even if you raise taxes, it still wouldn't fill the gap, and you would provide 0 homes this way unless you had yet a second new funding source. And even if you did that, you'd get about 6,000 to 8,000 homes, and we need hundreds of thousands of homes. It was a poorly thought through idea that looked good on the campaign trail, but this is why you need somebody who knows what they're doing in order to actually get results.
So there you have it. Those are the two candidates for King County Executive. I think it's going to be interesting to see just where all the votes come in that particular race. I hear it a lot, Steve, from people who are satisfied with both candidates. They like both candidates. There's not a lot of huge differences between the two. They've agreed on a lot of issues as they have served on the King County Council. And so I think what we have seen is Balducci tried to score some points here in this campaign just on the issue of public safety and what Girmay has said in the past during his time on the council, particularly about the youth jail and about policing, what a lot of people refer to as defunding the police. So that's the way they're trying to distinguish themselves. That'll be interesting to see where the votes come in.
Yeah, and when you watch them debate and the many that they had over the season, you could see that they don't dislike each other. They really are the same, very similar in their issues. It's going to come down to experience, who's been doing this the longest. And, who has a long track record of getting the job done. And of course, through each voter, they're going to view them much differently.
And I think that we're going to see in this election a narrative develop, particularly in the city of Seattle, depending on how this election goes, because what we saw in the primary in particular with the Seattle City Council president, Sarah Nelson, she lost the primary. The Seattle City Attorney, Ann Davison, also lost the primary. They were both beat pretty handily in the primary. If those two seats were to change and their challengers were to win, and perhaps Katie Wilson was to win, I think people are going to say this is a mandate from the voters. We don't know if that's going to happen. Voter turnout was low in the primary, but if that happens in the general election, that will indeed be a story. And then we have all the levies too, Steve.
Right.
Like one in Edmonds in particular is interesting because they're talking about raising the property taxes just to keep city services going. And there are a lot of people who don't believe that that's the case in the city of Edmonds. So there's a lot of levies, more tax measures that are on the ballot here that I think it's going to be interesting to see when we ever see pushback on when governments ask for new taxes to do things.
There's also one down in Renton that impacts Valley Hospital, and that's a really big one, especially now as every hospital in the country is going to face some serious financial challenges moving forward. And if this levy were to not pass, that could be an issue for that region.
There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has been fun.
Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Thank you.